I am super excited by technologies which promise to transform the lives of not only millions, but billions of people. And Serena, you and I were introduced with one another only probably about a year ago, through a mutual contact that just knew that you and I would hit it off from the beginning with having the geekiest chats about the future of wearables and beyond. And so I'm really excited, and thank you for making the time to speak with me today. I'd like to find out a little bit more about who you are and what you do at Wavi.
Well, thanks so much for having me. And it's been a very fun 6 months of chatting back and forward. So I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for Wavi, and Wavi is the accessible brain scanning company. What we're trying to do is bring together objective data to improve patient outcomes and improve brain care overall. My background is I've had actually personally over 10 operations. I had chronic fatigue syndrome. I have fibromyalgia. And when I came across this company, it was the first time I'd ever had my brain scanned. And when it did, I saw something that wasn't totally right. And that sort of blew my mind, and I fell in love with the company and sort of went knocking on the door and was like, hire me. And they're like, we're not hiring people. I'm like, okay, let me consult. They're like, we're not. But I sort of got in there. And so I've been working with Wavi for a year. And it's an incredibly exciting company and piece of hardware and software to be involved with.
Yeah, it's really interesting because when I first found out about Wavi, it particularly excited me because of my story, really, from my left lung collapsing to then being diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And I had the opportunity to meet with you and actually, try on the device and actually map out my own brain. Well, I'm really interested actually from it being a technology which people may have thought was very sort of like Elon Musk, futuristic, to actually something today which could actually redefine both mental and physical health. What do you think of that?
Well, look, this is the thing is you've got the amazing projects coming out like Elon Musk's kernel, all of these ones, which, the technology they're developing is really exciting and in the future is going to change lives. And, it's a very collaborative approach. What Wavi is something that has been in development for the last sort of 10, 12 years and is actually in the market now. We're already working with a whole bunch of different practitioners, biohackers, psychologists, cardiologists, sports teams, with a whole range of different use cases. And that's what makes Wavi and sort of, I guess, the whole neurotech space so exciting, because we're just sort of like at the 0.1% of it. The opportunities that are going to come from the technology, from the objective data we're learning, are just tremendous.
So how does that work in practice then? Because in my line of work, I talk a lot about determining what's normal for you. Is that how, is that kind of how it works with Wavi?
Totally. So what Wavi is, and I'm just going to show it, but this is the sort of the skull cap, as it were, that just fits on the head. We're measuring 19 different channels, and this is the hardware. Then there's corresponding software, which basically takes what are quite sort of, only people who are really in the neurospace are going to be able to read an EEG signals. And it basically spits out a report that your doctor or your gym instructor or someone can sort of help you translate and understand. And then you sort of understand, who are you? What is your state versus your trait? So let's say you go and stand on the weighing scales. That doesn't actually mean anything on the first time you do it, because it's a case of what is your height? What is your bone density? What is the standard for you? And what do you want to achieve from that? Do you want to put on weight? Do you want to lose weight? And so by having a Wavi brain scan, you can look at your brain speed, from a basic sort of layman's side, you're looking at your brain speed, your brain voltage, and there's a whole bunch of other sort of data points that are a lot more complex. But then for me, I know that my brain speed is really fast, but my brain voltage is really slow. And that could be for many different reasons, because what we're working with is non-specific biomarkers. But it means that as I want to optimize and improve my brain, it's not about my brain speed, but it's about my brain voltage, which is kind of like my battery pack. That's what I want to optimize for. And these kind of things I had never seen before. I know my weight, my blood pressure, all of those things. But to actually understand that and have that objective measurement, rather than just being subjectively, I'm really tired and I can't do a full day's work, to have seen that in terms of my voltage, for me, that was an absolute game changer.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, because there's a lot of skepticism around wearable technologies, specifically because they're really good at just saying, right, well, your heart rate variability is this, you've got, blood oxygen levels of X, Y, Z, but so what? And that's what really caught my eye about Wavi, because actually it gives you this really interesting report that you can baseline, and actually, in 6, 12, beyond months, you can then actually look at the differences and how you're actually improving over time. And I think that's going to be the difference that takes a wearable technology from good to excellent. What do you think?
The so what in everything is key. But what's really interesting about Wavi is we're not the technology to say so what. And there's a lot of people in neurotech and the neurospace who are making some claims that might not yet be strictly accurate. What we are is we're just the weighing scales, as it were. And then it's up to you to work with your physician, your nutritionist, your psychologist, sort of whoever it is you're working with, to work out what does that mean for you and how do you optimize it and protect your brain going forward.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And, immediately what comes to my mind is applications in, health, life sciences, and, just that sort of core area that you might go into your doctor's surgery and have this alongside maybe your regular physical health or even mental health check.
I mean, just jumping in there, in the US, I know that, there are a lot of clinics that are using this. You go in for your annual health checkup at the moment, or you go into your integrative practitioner. They monitor everything objectively from here down. They look at your blood, your stool, your urine, your weight, your blood pressure, maybe your EKG, but they don't look at your brain, because at the moment in brain care, we only look at it, really, you only do a brain scan when something has happened. So what we're trying to do is flip that around and making it preventative in the same way that we do with the rest of your body, to give that objective measurement.
Yeah, moving away from reactive and being much more proactive in approaches to managing both physical and mental health is super interesting. But immediately, and I need to be careful because I tend to get overly excited and run away with these ideas.
You and I both.
Exactly why we get on really well. And what's sort of buzzing around my head is that, you've got it in medical care settings, but actually, if you think about it, this technology, the principle could be applied actually outside of the life sciences and health, and thinking about other industries. Have you had any discussions there?
Oh, so many, and I get so excited about it. So, one of the big areas, so there's sort of 3 big areas that I sort of bucketed in, is one is sport. And, with sport, we are talking to the likes of rugby league, football, Formula One. We're working with US Olympians. We're working with Winter Games, Summer Games type athletes. And what we're looking at there is sort of twofold, but it's protection. And by protection, we're talking about baselining and seeing how far from the norm if something happens. So, at the moment, what we are is a research device, and how people are using it, let's say, in terms of trying to understand if maybe a concussive event has occurred, is, you baseline an athlete, and then if a concussive event has occurred, and we've done a 4-year-long research study on this, is the voltage, and this is where it gets too scientific and I would want to bring my researcher in, but you can start to see if a brain is far from its baseline because potentially a concussive event has occurred, and then you can track it to ensure a safe return to play. And then, so that's great in terms of sport, but the other aspect is in sport is all these athletes, especially at the high level, it's all about the 1% optimization. How do you improve everything 1%? If you're catching a ball in tennis, hitting a ball in tennis, that's how sporty I am, catching a ball. If you're hitting a ball in tennis, you want to have your physical reaction time and your brain reaction time, you want them as fast as possible. So if you can do an objective brain scan and then start to look at what interventions, is it doing mindfulness? Is it around nutrition? Is it around some brain exercise? Is it neurofeedback? What is it that going to improve that can improve your performance? And then likewise, I've had some early conversations with some ex-military people who are really interested, and veterans who are interested in from aspects of understanding, kind of like what you had, understanding, could you track and understand what a PTSD brain looks like? What is the data around there? And a lot of this is blue sky thinking when you start talking about PTSD. There's no biomarkers for that yet. But, you know, if we could get the data correct and we could scan a lot of people, ultimately, could we get to the point where you could say, there are different types of brains, and this brain is more likely potentially to get PTSD. So therefore, what support and intervention could we give them to stop that ever happening? You know, and sort of understanding that. And then the other geeky military thing that I know I've discussed with you before, but is, what does an ideal brain look like for everything? So one of the things we look at is, let's say, a theta beta ratio. And with that, there's been a lot of well-studied research projects that people who have a high theta beta ratio might self-identify as being people more with ADHD. And so it's, you know, what we've seen in our team is that people who more self-identify as ADHD and have those higher markers, they're our salespeople and they're fantastic at it. But then asking them to sort of fill in the paperwork and do it can be quite a struggle. So then as a team, we paired them, people in our team who have a very low theta beta ratio. And so they work really well as a team. And so, you know, in high pressure jobs, in team building, team formation, there's all of these aspects. But could we get to the point where, like, this is an ideal brain for a Formula One driver. This is an ideal brain for a sniper. This is an ideal brain for an entrepreneur. The thing that I don't like about this morally is that you're going to bucket people. You know, it's up to all of us individually to be sort of like, go on our own path and find out where it's going. But this is what's so exciting about Neurotech is, you know, if you're tall, you might be a really good basketball player. I'm never going to be a good basketball player. But, you know, is there the equivalent sort of understanding around brain?
Yeah, and what really strikes me is that we're just sort of really just hitting the very tip of the iceberg here, because the applications can be spread across a multitude of different industries. You know, you and I were chatting just a few weeks ago even about using this technology even for things like contact centers, using technologies like this in a realm of industries. So I think, you know, application here is unlimited. And I think we're just at the very early phase of discovering that this technology could actually transform lives. And for me, I find that really exciting.
It is, but I think the key thing is there's a lot of lofty ambitions out there, and there's a lot of blue sky thinking. It's being like, this is what it could be. But actually, if we bring it down to where is it now and what is it? And then it's like, okay, we know where we'd like to get to. We all need to sort of collaborate, you know, whether it's corporations like Accenture, Wavi, you know, I'm in talks with a whole bunch of different organizations, but we need to come together to get it from where it is now, to get it to where we want it to be, and it could be, which could really change lives. You know, there's a lot of steps to get there, but it is feasible, but it's going to take time.
Yeah, well, I think we could chat about this for hours and hours and days, and it's just been really fascinating to explore with you, you know, various different application areas and really where it's heading. So thank you very much for your time today, Serena. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. And I'm really excited to keep conversations going. And if anyone wants to get in touch, please do. Would really love to chat about different collaborations.